Welcome back to the part 3, police, Muslims and community relations with myself, Bilal Ali Hugh and Kevin Hurley. Kevin, I'm quite surprised that it is so quiet out there. There are so many people I speak to, so many Muslims I speak to, and about the society and the way that we're represented in the media and the Muslims and the police and prevent and all these type of things. And there's, lots of opinions and perspectives shared, but I'm surprised it's so quiet out there. I don't know if you got.
Well, I
would
like to invite. Which shall I go? Which camera?
A few. Bosch, middle camera.
There we go. Middle camera.
Boom.
My name's Kevin Hurley. I'm the elected Police and Crime Commissioner for Surrey, and I did 30 years as a police officer in the Metropolitan Police and City of London, where I was the head of counter-terrorism. This is your chance to speak to someone about what goes on, what it's all about in politics, what it's all about in policing. I want to hear from you about issues concerning you as a Muslim, as a black person, an Asian person, or a person who's concerned about politics. So, come on, you've got the number there in front of you, crack on, call in.
Actually, stay with the middle camera. I think wow, that worked. We seem to have a caller. Hello, caller.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. What is a question or comment that you'd like to make, brother?
So, I go to a centre in northwest London.
Northwest London,
and in Ramadan, the last Ramadan, we had a few officers doing their rounds, and they would join us for iftar. And they were very interested in knowing about us and our culture and our practices. And it was clear that they didn't know much about us, like the Shias and Muharram and stuff like that.
Okay.
So my question was, among my friends, we were discussing about whether we can approach the police and maybe assist them in informing their officers about what we believe in our cultures and our traditions. What is your opinion? Is that something that we can do? Is it something that the communities can assist the police with? And how is that possible?
Sorry, I didn't catch your first name?
Ahmed.
Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum, Ahmed.
Walaikum salam.
In answer to your question, absolutely, please do it. Earlier on in the programme, I was talking about the real crucial need for police officers and indeed teachers, anyone involved in delivering a public service, to understand what's going on and what Islam is about. They need to know what a Sunni is, a Shia, an Ahmadi, Ismaili.
We lost him, but he's probably still listening.
He's lost him. So the police really would need to know that. They can therefore do their job better, help you, because the police are there really to make it better for everyone. And what you'll also do, you'll break down some of the perceptions that get formed for the police, just like anyone else, by some of the statements you see in the press. So I would urge anyone who's a Muslim to make friends with a local police officer, reach out to them, invite them into your home, talk about your religion, talk about your belief system, find out what's important for them, and don't create the situation where the police wonder, what is Islam about? What's it about? Get them into the mosques, get them into Islamic centres. I'm in mosques all the time. One can always learn more. So break down any misperceptions out there, get the police to come and see you, and indeed do more of what happened the other week, which was National Mosque Open Day, where a lot of mosques up and down the UK just invited people in from the surrounding area to come in, share a bit of curry, have a tour of a mosque, watch prayers, meet with the imam, so they understand what's going on. Because of course, for a lot of what you might call the older Brits, they still don't know what Islam is about, and hey, it might even help you achieve a few converts. So reach out.
Quick question, Kevin. Because that sounds good, but I'm just wondering, in the context, it sounded sort of informal. Is there a way of sort of do you think there's a possibility of having a type of more formal form of that, like a imam or sheikh assembly or mosque assembly, and sort of more of a formalized, systematic way of addressing that? Because there's many Muslims that are probably willing and have the knowledge or have the time.
Of course. I mean, I think there's absolute, and there is a lot of systematic stuff going on. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact I regularly are in all the different mosques as the senior politician for the county of Surrey is an indication of it. And some of the local officers at the various mosques are invited into them as well. But I think it's much more than that. There are a huge number of police officers who have nothing to do with the Islamic community other than if they're called there because one of them's been burgled, one's been assaulted, one's been involved in trouble or whatever. I think there's a case for everyone to take the opportunity if they can to invite the police in. So if you are a member of a mosque management committee or a Muslim school or you're an imam, reach out to whoever your local police stations, your local places, and bring them in, particularly with the younger, newer officers, because it's like everything. The thought you put into young people tends to stay with them longer and shapes their perceptions. Invite them in for a day, half a day, a few hours. Have a cup of tea. Talk about what goes on. Talk about the 5 pillars of Islam. Talk about its history so people understand. I really would urge people in the community to do just that. And I would also similarly say to Christians, Jews, Hindus or whatever, go and visit your local mosque, find out what goes on.
Interesting. And do you think that could be part of anything of that nature could be interwoven into training? I mean, I wouldn't want to single out the Muslim community to say, oh, there's a problem and
well, there isn't.
And define a Muslim community in terms of policing and problems, because that's oftentimes how we are discussed in the mainstream. But I'm just being realistic. There is an issue of sort. Could that work?
What we need to do is break down the headlines from the Daily Mail. That's what we need to do. Break down the headlines from some of the other newspapers and get behind that. And one of the key ways I think for Muslims is to reach out particularly to the police and engage with them much more, meeting with them so they can say, oh, so that's what Islam is about. Oh, that's what these people are about. And that actually will make the police officers better at their job in doing a service for you if ever you need them because you've had a problem. There is various forms of training done by police forces up and down the country, certainly my own in Surrey. We've got our own Muslim Police Association.
So if somebody was interested, I'm saying I've got viewers out there that are thinking, I really want to do something. I'm retired, and I've got the time, or I'm at college, but I've got a window here or there.
Yep.
How could I volunteer my time as a Muslim with a certain level of knowledge I would like to extend and volunteer my services?
Okay, I'll tell you what I would do. Everyone's got a local neighbourhood team, which would be maybe the PCSOs, constable, sergeant or inspector. Find out where their base is. They'll be on the internet. And it might be their base might be in the back of a library or a Tesco's or somewhere like that, because we've tended to close off police stations now and base police officers much more out in the community area. And invite them to meet with you. Invite them to the mosque. Pop in and say, can I talk to you about what we're about, our religion, so you understand it. Reach out to them, because the police are pretty busy just dealing with their day-to-day work. And so they won't necessarily go there. But I think it would be helpful to deal with a lot of this mystique that's created in, as I say, the Daily Mail, on Sky News, and so on. Because whilst the police do some formalised training, the big problem is with the cuts in public expenditure, police training has been massively reduced. It's been a huge mistake by the government to cut the police budgets like they have, because all they've talked about is, we've kept police numbers at this kind of level. We'll keep your local PCSO or your local constable. Well, it's not a lot of good if they're not as well trained as they used to be. Okay, we've got detectives. It's not a lot of good if they're not as well trained as they used to be. Because I can tell you that I had 3.5 years of full-time training in a 30-year police career when I moved fairly much up the structure. Someone who got as high as me now would get a quarter of that. A junior officer even much less. So,
wow.
I would ask people, if you really care about improving your community and relationships with the police, reach out, almost drag them in, for a cup of tea, a samosa or something. Get them in. If there's a cop or a PCSO walking by your mosque or your school, okay, officer, do you want to, hi, have you ever been in here? No. Do you want to come and see what happens? Come in. Some will be nervous, I'll be honest. Some will be nervous because they'll think it's some kind of trick, to do something awful. But of course it's
something
not.
nefarious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Call them in, invite them in. But if you've got an opportunity, if you're an imam or on the management committee, reach out perhaps to the local inspector, the superintendent of the local borough and say, look, we'd like to do something more formal and bring your officers in. So I'll give you an example. When I was at Hammersmith and Fulham Police Station, I used to run the area, just down the road from where the studio is, in fact. Very regularly, we would have groups of 30 young cops, would go into the Fulham Mosque, or they'd go...
How long ago was this?
This would have been 5 years ago that this was going on. I don't know if it still carries on, because, of course, I had a different view maybe to the bosses who replaced me. Maybe they're still doing it. We'd be going into... there's an Islamic centre in Shepherd's Bush Road. And equally, I personally, when I'd go out on a pedal bike, even though I was a boss, and I just used to go into the Shepherd's Bush Mosque in Uxbridge Road and just walk in and demand a cup of tea. You know, kind of the shock and amazement.
So you're talking about something being proactive,
yeah,
and that's you as a police officer. I'm wondering if...
But I'm saying let's go the other way.
That's what I'm
let's
trying
go
that's
the
what
other
I'm
way.
asking. Do you think that Muslims need to be proactive? Because maybe...
Please.
Is it possible that the Muslim
Please.
community have become in a some
Complacent
sections
or
some sections
defensive.
victim mode and defensive?
Defensive. You've got to get out of that. My message, if I can, if I can look at the camera, that's the camera,
Bosh.
is you've got to get out of that, reach out to the police, bring them in,
Dower
invite
them.
in for a cup of tea, a samosa. If you're relatively senior in the community, reach out to the inspector, the local superintendent, and say, bring your guys and girls into the mosque. We want to tell you what this is about. We want you to understand what is going on in our mosque. We're proud of it, and we'd like you to meet the faithful. I mean, that's what... Do that. Get the local superintendent to talk to Friday prayers for 10 minutes. Might make a change from the imam if you're tired of what he's got to say.
Very, very interesting. What do you think is the potential if we as Muslims fail to build bridges or the police force fail to build bridges? What is the negative possibility of that?
I think the worst thing is you will not get the help that you deserve and need from the police to live within this society. Because if they're nervous to engage with you, when you're a victim of crime, and I'm not talking about some of these terrible crimes where a woman is spat upon because she's wearing a veil or a hijab or whatever, but generally you will not necessarily get quite the service you would do, because they're always going to be a bit defensive when they're dealing with you. So if something really bad happens to you, that you're assaulted, you're burgled, they're always going to be thinking, how do I protect my job about a complaint, as opposed to, how can I find out the criminal who's done it to this man or this woman? You know, it's to everyone's advantage to embrace the police and work with them, because the cops really are pretty reasonable human beings who get shaped by their daily experiences of what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And you imagine doing a job that's like this, that you go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, and as you're perhaps having your cup of tea and toast and just being briefed by your sergeant about what's going on, an emergency call goes, you have to drop your tea and toast, you haven't really had any breakfast. It's a bit like being in permanent Ramadan, actually, when you're an early term policeman. You never get your breakfast and you're always hungry. And you rush out the door and you're straight at a road accident where people are covered in blood, some people are distressed, someone's shouting in your face about, it's that one there, he's drunk, he's done it. And you're trying to make sense of that, and you've only been at work for 15 minutes. And the next thing you're calming that down, and then it's coming to dealing with this guy who's been drinking all night, and it's kind of, don't you know who I am, officer? I'll get you sacked if you try and breathalyse me. Within half an hour, they're getting grief. They're arresting this guy now. He's in the police station. He's moaning at them. He's a stroppy, difficult drunk. So that goes on for a bit. They write up their report. They then eventually get their toast, a cup of tea, and maybe an egg sandwich or something. Go back out on patrol, and the next thing, they've got someone's been caught stealing from a shop, and they're fighting with the shop staff. The police officer arrives, and they're now fighting with someone.
So this is
and as they bring this person out, because this person is from an ethnic community who might have a view about police, next thing they're fighting the police officer to stop them taking the prisoner away. And before the cop gets home in the afternoon, he's thinking, all I really wanted to do is go to work, and I've spent my day with grief. A late term shift for a police officer is non-stop, face to face, grief and aggravation. Rowdy school kids disturbing people on the bus. You know, they get called to that in the afternoon. Then after that, there'll be crashes where people are arguing on road rage. Then after that, they'll start to get people who come home early from work, who've had a couple of drinks in a fight with their wife. Then they've got the pub fight, and then when they finish, it's time to go home.
Wow.
You know,
So this is there's this it's so complex, but I mean we've run out of time. It's just, the time has just gone so quickly. So I mean, I'd like to thank you for your time and wish you all the best with your endeavors in the future. And the takeaway message that I've got from yourself is that we as Muslims as a Muslim community or communities need to extend ourselves and put our foot forward also to build bridges.
hijack them in. Get them to come in for a cup of tea or a samosa. You know, when you're at the end of Friday prayers, say, what are you doing? Come and see. Have a look what goes on in Friday prayers, officer. You know, bring them in.
Bring them in. Thank you for staying with us for the duration of Breaking Boundaries. Hope to see you next week. Until such time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.